We're glad you joined us this week for this very important episode. If you watched last week's episode, you know that we had a shore power issue that could have potentially started a fire. This week, Jeremy walks through what happened, shows exactly what the damage was to our shore power cable and surge protector, discusses the likely cause of the issue, and then walks through how you can avoid being in this same situation. You do not want to miss these important safety tips. Additionally, on the lighter side of things, we used our honey wagon successfully for the first time, and we'll take you along for the ride as we visit a few of Kentucky's finest bourbon distilleries, where after years of searching, Jeremy was finally able to get his hands on a couple bottles of his favorite beverage. So, sit back, put up your feet, and enjoy this week's episode of Fairwinds RV.
All right, so the first tour of this bourbon trail we're doing, I think we're only doing 3. 2 today, 1 tomorrow, but the first one is Willet Distillery. We just got here. We're kind of in a rush to get in. We're running just a little bit behind. I'd never heard of Willet until we went to the Michigan rally. So I had some while I was there. It was good, so we'll see what this is like. But been looking forward to this one. Well, they don't allow video recording in there, so but they do allow pictures. So we're going to have to show you what that's all about in a little picture montage, guys. But it was a really good time. They had some really good bourbons in there. So here you go. Here's the picture montage. It was a good tour. They had some pretty good bourbons in there. Like I said before, I didn't even know about Willet. Never heard of it until about 6 or 8 weeks ago. Most of their bourbons were really good in there, so we bought a couple of them. Now we're going to go grab some lunch, and then it's going to be the Jim Beam Distillery tour. So we've got Jim Beam today, and then we've got Buffalo Trace tomorrow. So we did Willet and Jim Beam today.
Yep.
Willet is a much smaller distillery.
Yes, more intimate.
Yeah. The Beam, obviously, that's a huge operation there. The Willet one, I don't know if it was personal, but it was more personal.
Yeah.
It was just a better tour. We got to go in and see the actual fermentation process in there and get to smell all of that and just really get the sense of how that stuff is made.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Beam.
We got to see it kind of from a distance.
Actually, we didn't even go to that room.
Yeah, they had the room closed off because they said the process produces a lot of CO2, and they said that you just physically could not be in that room.
So I don't know. I guess maybe the difference at Willet is that all that operation was open air, so they have all the windows open, and that helps with their process somehow. So anyway, Willet was a really cool tour.
Yes.
I think the tour guide was better. I wouldn't say he was great, but he was better.
Mm-hmm.
Their bourbons and whiskeys were much more reasonably priced. I got the 2 that I really, really liked there. That if I was in the store, based on the way they taste, I would expect them to be $60 or $70 bourbons. And I picked one up for $45, and the other one was $28, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And that $28 one was really, really good. and it's only sold in Kentucky. So
Yeah.
there you go. Beam was good. It was nice to see the difference between the big two operations. So anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I don't know that I would ever go back to Beam. Everybody said make sure we did Beam, that it was a really great tour. You know, maybe it's just me, but we like that kind of stuff. We like smaller wineries.
Yeah.
We like mom and pop restaurants and stores. So that's just kind of the way we are. I know that Buffalo Trace is also a much bigger operation, but I'm really looking forward to that one. They make my favorite bourbon, which is Blanton's. Third distillery. It's the last one that we're going to do. I can't tell if my head's blocking the view or not. There we go. Buffalo Trace. Guys, this is the tour to do, at least in our experience.
Yes.
We've only done 3, but we did Willet, we did Jim Beam, and we did now Buffalo Trace.
Mm-hmm.
This hands down the best tour. We had the best tour guide I think that I've ever had on any kind of tour.
Yes, she was excellent. Her name is Lynn. And if you do a walk-in, you can actually ask if she's working that day and try to get on one of her tours. If you make advance reservations, you can't really do anything. But
yeah, but if you can get Lynn, Lynn, she was really good. Her knowledge of this place, of the history, the production, everything, the whole process was really top notch. There were some questions that I was surprised that she was able to answer.
Yeah, she didn't even bat an eye. Like,
Yep.
no hesitation. She knew the answer.
She just knew the
Bam.
answers. And then the best part about it was?
The Blantons.
Well, okay.
Okay.
The second
sorry.
best part of this tour was the fact that it was free. You don't have to pay for your tours here.
No.
So we tried to make a reservation. We couldn't get in for the dates that we wanted. So we got on the standby list. We both put ourselves in on the standby list. Candace got rejected, but they sent me an email, and so we got in on standby, the both of us. And so they also, like you mentioned, they do have the Blantons here. They have quite a bit of it.
Yep.
It's funny because when you go in there, the stock guy can just barely keep up with the whiskey that's going off, or the bourbon that's going off the shelves in there. I mean, he's just constantly stocking shelves. But $63 a bottle. Right now you can get 1 bottle per person. So we went ahead and we got 2 bottles of Blantons, because I haven't actually seen a bottle of Blantons in the store since, I don't think 2019, maybe before COVID. It might have been before that. I don't know. I can't even remember the last time I saw a bottle of Blantons in the store.
And that's 1 per person per 90 days.
Yeah, and they actually, so you got these wristbands, and it has your personal information on it. So they scan these at the tasting, and then they scan it again when you make your purchase, so they know if you're abusing that 1 bottle per person per 90 days. And if all of that wasn't enough, the added bonus that we got today is we got to go into the Blanton's bottling building, where they they fill and they bottle and they put the corks on. They do everything to the Blanton's bottle, all of that by hand. And I'll let you describe what that is.
Yeah, so this lady was walking around, and we just thought, like, she just wanted to get through. She was an employee, and she handed me and at least one other lady these gold Blanton toppers. And we found out today that each one is...
You found out today.
Oh, you already knew?
Yeah, I already knew. But
Oh, okay. So each one has a letter, and if you collect them all, they spell Blanton's. So you can tell they're slightly different, like the tail is raised, the jockey is in a different position. But yeah, so collect all 8,
But this is a gold one, which are extreme, I guess, very hard to find. So anyway, yeah, this woman who was in there, she was part of the bottling process. She was one of the employees. I think she gave out 2 or 3 of them. And she was kind of, you could tell she was kind of being a little secretive about it. I don't think she wanted to let the whole group know that she was giving them out. We just happened to be standing at in the right spot at the right time. And so that was really cool as well. So now we're headed, we got to go get groceries. We got to go do normal stuff.
Yeah. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, hit that bell button so you're notified when we drop future videos. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps keep these videos coming to you each week. We really like hearing from all of you, so if you have any thoughts, ideas, or suggested topics, pop those down into the comment section.
All right, this is the first for us using honey wagon or turd burglar or whatever you want to call it. We've never used it before. We're just going to put some kitchen gray water in it, and I hope I don't spill anything. The only thing I'm concerned about is I'm going uphill, so I mean it's going to go, but I don't know. We'll see. So I don't know how you're really supposed to know if when this thing's getting full. I mean, I can kind of see down in there, but not really. What's today, Thursday? Thursday or Friday? Today's Friday, so we've only got the rest of today and tomorrow, and then we're pulling out on Sunday, so I don't really have to get it empty. Stanky? It must be going that way because I can't smell it. All I can smell is the air freshener from the basement. I can see liquid in there, it's just hard to tell how far down it is or how far up it is. And hopefully this time the cap stays on. For those of you who know us, who have met us in person, have heard the story, let's just say we really hope the cap stays on when we're toting it. Now I can smell it. It does not smell pleasant. Oh. All right, that's probably good enough. So, yeah, you couldn't hear her because she was off camera there, but she said if you think that your black tank smells bad, your gray tank, it smells worse. Most of you know that, but oh, this is a good thing I stopped. It's there, it's at the top. All right, so never done this before. So this is our setup. So I don't know, this ought to work. I'm just gonna put that sucker up here and hopefully I've got enough room here. Let's see. that'll work. I don't know. And then, I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't fall off. All right, so that was our first time doing that. It's obviously not a difficult task, except it's 90 something degrees outside. It would have been so much easier if it wasn't hot, and it would also be easier if I had an actual ball on the back of the truck, which I don't have. Left them in the cabin. I left 2 of them at the cabin. I don't know why. When we sold the house, I left them there. So anyway, I don't have a ball. We'll get a ball eventually, but we priced them yesterday. The ball and everything that you need is like $80, and ratchet strap worked just fine. So anyway, that was it. That was our turd burglar experience, our first turd burglar experience. But there were no turds in it because it was just a kitchen gray.
It was our second.
Well, whatever.
But first successful.
Yeah. Okay, to make a long story short, we finally found a shore power cable. Had to go all the way back to Lexington, which is about an hour drive, and I got the last one that they had. So we're all good now. We've got shore power. We got plenty of power for all our air conditioners, which is a good thing because it's super hot out here. Now what I want to do is I want to go into what I found and why we had that initial issue between the shore power cable and the Hughes Watchdog 50 amp surge protector and EPO. And I kind of want to walk you through the cause of this, because I want to kind of stress the importance here of checking all of your electrical components and all of your electrical connections when it comes to shore power. It's super important. And I'll just preface this by saying, you know, I'm no different than anybody else. I tend to get a little bit lazy. You know, you check something 100 times, there's no issues, and you start thinking, well, why do I need to keep checking this? Well, this is why. So you can see here, I've got everything kind of laid out. So this is the surge protector / EPO. This is the Hughes product here. And then this is the shore power cable over here that I had an issue with when they were connected together. So I want to talk about what I found, what the issue is, and then also, since we've got this thing open, I really like this Hughes surge protector for a couple of different reasons. So number one, it is Bluetooth enabled, so it allows you to monitor how much power you're using at any given time through the app on your phone. The second reason that I really like these power watchdogs is because if you do take a hit on this thing, if it actually has to do its job and it has to protect your rig from a power surge, you don't necessarily need to replace the whole unit. So as you can see, I've got this thing opened up here, and it was really easy to open up. There's just 8 screws around the outside. You pull those off, and then you pull these, you just unscrew these and you pull these back, and then this cover pretty much just comes right off. You might have to get a small Phillips head screwdriver in there to pry it apart a little bit, and you need to be careful because there is a watertight gasket on here, obviously to keep that water out when it's out there in the rain. The one thing I want to point out in here is this is the card right here that will protect you in the event of a surge. And Hughes has designed this such that if this thing does take a hit and it does protect you from a surge, all you need to do is replace this board. And I think this board, there were about 30 to 40 bucks to replace this board versus spending the $275 to $300 to replace the entire unit. Now, this board is super simple to disconnect and install a new one. You have one connection here that just pulls right off of the board, and then you have this connection here that you just take apart. That's all there is to it. You just disconnect those 2 sets of cables, and then you get the new board, you reconnect those 2 sets of wires, and then you just set this thing right back in here. So that is a huge benefit to these Hughes Power Watchdog surge protectors, is that you can save a bunch of money. You only got to buy the whole unit once, assuming that there's nothing else wrong with it, and you can just replace this board if you do take a hit. Okay, so enough with that. Let's get on to what I found to be the problem. So essentially, this was my setup at that campground when we noticed the problem. So we were on a 30 amp breaker, so I had my 30 amp to 50 amp dog bone. I had the surge protector, and then we had the cable. Now, as always, disconnecting shore power is always the last thing that we do. We've got the landing gear up, we're on the truck, and we're ready to go. So the very first thing I do, and the first thing you should do whenever you are connecting or disconnecting shore power, is to make sure that the breaker is off at the pedestal. So I opened up the breaker at the pedestal, the 30 amp breaker at the pedestal. Then I unplugged my dog bone from the pedestal. Then I disconnected the dog bone from the surge protector. And then I moved on to disconnecting the surge protector from the shore power cable. And this is where I found the issue. And really the way that I noticed that I had a problem was I was not able to disconnect right here between the surge protector and the shore power cable. It was melted together. So as you can see right in here, there is some deformation here on both the plug for the surge protector and the plug for the shore power cable. And like I said, it was just melted together and I couldn't pull it apart. So what we ended up having to do was just grab a flathead screwdriver. We had to pry this apart, and it actually took both me and Candace to get this separated. That's how strong that bond was when this melted itself together. All right, now that we had it apart, we could see very clearly that there's some discoloration here. It's black and charred, right? And it's also a little bit deformed because of the heat. And then on this connection on the surge protector itself, I could definitely see there's some damage in there. There's rubber and plastic melted in here, and I could see some charring. I do wish that I had gotten some video of it at the time, but it was so hot outside, and we were not in a rush to get out of there, but we wanted to get out of there and get on the road. So I didn't get any video of that. But what you can see here is the close-ups of the damage that was done to both the surge protector and the cable itself. So what this tells me is that there was likely a high resistance connection between the surge protector and the cable at this one prong. Okay, so now let's fast forward to today, where I've been able to sit down and take a closer look at it. And it turns out that my assumption about the high resistance connection was accurate. And I'm going to show you exactly what I found here. Really, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a resistance reading between this here, where this prong plugs in here, and I'm going to take that back to where it connects inside of the surge protector itself, and we want to see what that resistance reading is. Now, when you're taking a resistance across an electrical connection, you really want that resistance to be as low as possible. The more resistance there is, the more heat that connection is going to produce, and if it produces too much, obviously you get in a situation like this where you start melting connections. So I'm just going to use my basic fluke multimeter here. I'm just going to set it on resistance, and then I'm going to stick one lead inside where the prong would normally go from the shore power cable in here, and then I'm going to put the other end of it basically on the other end of the wire that's connected there. And I can see right here I have what we call an open line on that connection. There is infinite basically amount of resistance in that line. So what we really want to see, and if I wiggle this around, we can get it there, is about, maybe 0.1 or 0.2 ohms on that connection. And I'll show you what the good side looks like. So if I just stick this prong right in here and right on here, that meter immediately goes down to 0.1 ohms. So that tells me that I have a high resistance connection in here. Now, this isn't exactly like putting the male end of the shore power cable in it. The shore power cable prong is a little bit thicker, so it's going to make a little bit better contact than my lead here. But this tells me that I've got a high resistance connection in there. So if I just wiggle it around in there, it basically opens up that connection, and if I wiggle it some more, I can get an okay or a decent connection. But that's what a high resistance connection looks like. And like I said, that creates a lot of heat, and obviously heat is going to be bad for these connections. Now let's get to the reason for that, the reason that that's a high resistance connection on that one prong. So I don't need my meter on for this, but what I want to show you is on this side, or the good side, if I take this lead and I just stick it right in there, it kind of stays there, because inside of this plug, you can almost think of it like a spring-loaded clamp. So when I stick that lead in there, it sticks just like that. Now, let me show you what the other side looks like. If I just stick this in here, it just falls right out there, right? That quote-unquote spring-assisted clamp in there, it's basically fully open like this, and that it's not making contact with this lead. So, like I said, the cable, the prong on the cable is just a little bit wider, but it's not wide enough to fully make a good connection inside of here. Now, what caused that? I don't know, probably just age. We've had this thing for about 3 years. You know, as much as we paid for it, I would have hoped that we got more than 3 years out of it. It could be that it was faulty from the get-go. Whatever the case may be for the underlying reason that this failed, I'll probably never know. But the reason that I had that high resistance connection is because this part of that connection inside of this female plug is faulty. So the question that you may be asking yourself right now is, how do we prevent this in the future, right? So I can't stress how important it is to do a physical inspection and maybe even just a little bit of electrical testing on your shore power setup regularly. Now, there are some things that you should look at every single time you bring on shore power and every single time you take it off. And those things would be just to simply take a look at the male and the female ends of every cord. You should not see anything that looks like it's been burned up, not even remotely. If it looks black, charred, burnt up in any way, you need to either just replace it or maybe just have a professional come look at it. So the visual inspection would be the first step. The second step would be, and I've done this in the past, I've done all of this in the past, but like I said, I'm human just like everybody else. You do it 100 times, you don't have any problems, and you just think, well, I don't need to do this anymore. But another thing that I would recommend doing here is just testing these connections in here. Just stick your lead in there, make sure that that's a nice tight connection and that it doesn't just simply fall out of there. And actually, now that I'm looking at this, the neutral connection is the same way. There's no resistance in there at all to this lead going in. So, that may be something that I would want to keep an eye on as well. All right, guys, so that's really going to cover it here. That's really about all I had to show you. Generally, besides the actual fault inside of here, whatever that is, and whatever that underlying cause is, this whole situation is really just my fault for not paying enough attention to all of these different components and all of these different connections. So that's what I'm gonna leave you with. This is a great example of why you need to pay attention to these, why you need to be inspecting them on a regular basis. So having said all of that, I think that's gonna be it for this video. It's gonna be it for this week. As always, if you like this video, if you got something out of it, make sure you hit that like button down there and the subscribe button. And then again, while you're at it, go ahead and hit that bell button so that you get notified every time we drop a new video. So with that, happy camping and stay safe out there, guys.